Hi, thank you for watching Digging to China. I'm Dong Xiong. If you have not done so already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. Today, I will continue discussing the most trending topic in Chinese society, which is related to the late former premier Li Keqiang. Our main focus today is to explore Li Keqiang's economic principles. In 2013, Li Keqiang's economics was the most discussed economic topic. At that time, Li Keqiang had recently become the premier of the State Council, holding significant influence over economic affairs. During that period, he had substantial authority, particularly in economic decision-making. During the early part of 2013, at the National Congress Two Sessions gathering, Li Keqiang, during a post-meeting press conference, delivered the following statement. I emphasize that the reform represents the most significant dividend because our socialist market economy is still in the process of refinement. Through reform, we can further unlock productive potential, which remains substantial. The benefits of reform should reach all citizens, and there is considerable room for this. Action is the key in reform. Rolling up our sleeves is more effective than merely vocalizing slogans. The core of this reform plan involves altering the government's functions, which inherently includes reducing its authority. If organizational reform optimizes the allocation of power within the government, the transformation of functions entails clarifying and streamlining the government's relationship with the market and the society. In simpler terms, it means entrusting the market with what it can handle, assigning tasks that society is adapted at, and having the government oversee and manage its appropriate responsibilities. This passage represents the origin of Li Keqiang's economic principles. Later, Barclays Bank condensed Li Keqiang's economic principles into three main pillars. 1. Avoiding the implementation of stimulus policies. 2. Deleveraging. 3. Implementing structural reforms. To put it simply, within the system, it means making the government more efficient and not hindering economic growth. While outside the system, it means giving more autonomy to the market and the society to maintain economic growth. What's particularly crucial is striking a balance between these aspects. In essence, this approach has always been the guiding philosophy of reformists. Now, with Li Keqiang's passing, it signifies that China may no longer have prominent reformists. Li Keqiang was a product of the Communist Party system, and the so-called reformists are also entrenched within the Chinese Communist Party structure. Whether they are reformists or individuals like Xi Jinping who hold more conservative views, they all share a common objective: preserving the Chinese Communist Party's authority. The disparities between them are primarily related to the methods and approaches. The strategy of reformists involved the coexistence of a market economy and a planned economy. This allows them to enjoy the benefits of the system's privileges while reaping the rewards of economic growth, effectively striking a balance. For instance, when the system becomes excessively cumbersome and organizational costs surge, reformists take action to streamline it. However, if the market's influence becomes overwhelming and the private capital gains significant power, potentially impacting the system from the outside, reformists raise protective barriers to preserve their privileged and monopolistic status. The events of June 4, 1989 during the Tiananmen Square protest serve as a typical example. While Deng Xiaoping was a key figure among the reformists, he also ordered the use of force against the students. Therefore, it's important not to view the reformists as champions of democratic change in China. Their primary aim was to accumulate wealth, and once they succeeded, they kept the lion's share while giving the smaller portion to the public. This dynamic emerged because the Chinese populace had endured prolonged hardships, and even a modest share of the wealth led them to express gratitude to the Chinese Communist Party. Xi Jinping doesn't align with the reformist camp. He's a conservative with a straightforward agenda. His core belief is that all of China's wealth should be centralized within the Chinese Communist Party, specifically under his control. This centralized wealth allows him to wield substantial power and undertake ambitious endeavors. Xi Jinping's perspective is clear-cut. He thinks that the Chinese populace doesn't need to share in economic benefits. He believes that maintaining tight control over them is more important. In his view, when Chinese citizens have more financial resources and improved living standards, they tend to develop diverse interests and thoughts, which could potentially challenge the party's authority. Furthermore, he sees market economics as expendable, as he can resort to resource appropriation and military action when necessary. Consequently, in the eyes of the Chinese population, the reformists are considered the ones who can bring salvation compared to the conservatives. Let's explore how Li Keqiang, full of vigor in 2013, initiated his economic reforms. His first priority was to streamline the bureaucratic processes within the government. Upon taking office, he quickly identified the significant challenges present within the system. For instance, in the State Council where he served, there were a staggering 1,700 plus administrative approvals items. Even minor tasks require multiple levels of administrative authorization. This inherent inefficiency within the government was obstructing normal societal functions. Additionally, there was a glaring issue of widespread corruption within the system. If left unchecked and allowed to persist, it would inevitably result in public discontent. Corruption in itself added to the operational costs of private enterprises, further burdening them, which naturally hampered economic development. There is also a broader context that deserves our attention. In 2013, China had already been engaged in reforms and opening up for 3 decades, yet genuine industrial upgrading had not materialized. Concurrently, the demographic dividend was gradually diminishing. Internationally, voices were growing skeptical about China's prospects, and some believed it was entering a period of slower economic growth and might struggle to overcome the middle-income trap. From Li Keqiang's perspective, he heeded these concerns, recognizing the gravity of the situation and the urgency of the moment. Consequently, he decided to pivot towards the market. Subsequently, as many are aware, government efficiency significantly improved when dealing with government departments. Additionally, various government expenses, including public funds for dining and even official vehicles, faced stringent limitations. These actions were later credited to Xi Jinping's leadership, but in my view, that's not entirely accurate. Xi Jinping simply saw Li Keqiang's idea as advantageous because the funds saved by cutting these expenses could conveniently flow into his own pocket. Hence, he supported Li Keqiang's initiatives. Subsequently, Li Keqiang focused on devolving authority outside the established system to sustain economic growth. How did he intend to do this? Li Keqiang's strategy involved the 3 progressive steps. Firstly, marketizing interest rates. Secondly, marketizing the exchange rates. And thirdly, gradually moving towards full currency exchange flexibility. However, as we have seen, in reality, he only made it to the first step before facing failure. Li Keqiang envisioned a 3-step plan, although he didn't anticipate reaching the final stage. His goal was to find equilibrium between the internal and external systems. He planned to halt further progress if the market becomes active enough. However, he underestimated the formidable challenges he would face, especially in implementing the initial step. Li Keqiang's motivation for pursuing interest rate marketization reform was to alleviate the financing costs burdening private enterprises and stimulate greater vitality in the market economy. At the time, there were 2 prominent challenges in the realm of private enterprise financing. Firstly, there was a systemic bias against private enterprises from banks, which were hesitant to provide loans to them due to perceived high risks. Banks preferred directing a substantial portion of their credit toward state-owned enterprises. Furthermore, the interest rates in banks were government-regulated, and the absence of price competition among banks resulted in a highly inflexible financial market. This meant that regardless of which bank private enterprises turned to for financing, they faced unfavorable pricing conditions. The second significant challenge in private enterprise financing revolved around the fact that many of these businesses had to resort to shadow banking for funding, often utilizing trust channels. However, this method came with the burden of high intermediary fees. Various intermediaries would take their share, while banks also claimed their portion. Private enterprises in many cases lacked the ability to negotiate or bargain effectively. Essentially, they were left in a vulnerable position akin to lambs awaiting slaughter, without the leverage to assert better terms. According to Li Keqiang, if the central government were to eliminate the practice of setting interest rates and empower banks to determine loan and deposit pricing, it would promote robust competition among banks, providing advantages for private enterprises. Furthermore, he made the strategic decision to liberalize banking licenses, allowing high-performing private firms to establish their banks and compete with state-owned banks. Lastly, he opted to introduce P2P lending as an extra, more accessible financing avenue for private enterprises. P2P lending represents a financial innovation that wholly relies on market-driven pricing. Nevertheless, the outcome revealed that Li Keqiang had well-intentioned ideas but pursued overly ambitious goals. The harsh reality dictated that, in order to realize his comprehensive financial reforms, he needed to ensure his influence extended over both the financial regulatory bodies and the judicial system. In practice, these regulatory bodies were controlled by the financial faction, while the judicial system was in the hands of Xi Jinping. Unfortunately, he found himself unable to rely on either group and was continuously manipulated. The financial faction exploited his position to amass wealth, while Xi Jinping capitalized on his errors to consolidate his authority. In the end, he had no choice but to accept the stark reality of his resounding failure. Li Keqiang's economic reform plan, devised in 2013, could be considered a well-targeted approach in theory. However, in practice, it was ill-suited for China for that time. Li Keqiang found himself fighting a solitary battle, receiving no support from Xi Jinping or the financial faction. It could be said that Li Keqiang was ahead of his time. His eagerness to achieve remarkable progress in his role as premier led to an oversight of Xi Jinping's ambitions. With the loss of his authority, it signifies not only Li Keqiang's personal loss, but also marked the exit of reformists from the historical stage. From then on, it was all about Xi's loyalists, with no room left for market-oriented economic reforms. Rather than saying that the Chinese people nostalgically remember Li Keqiang, it's perhaps more accurate to say that everyone is bidding farewell to the era of economic reform and opening up. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscribe button right here. I'll see you again shortly. Until then, be well.